Okay, now I'm going to present for the activity the domain model layer. So that's why I'm concerned about the business logic, basically. And what's nice here is that I can ignore that this is a persistent entity, because this is addressed in the previous, as I've shown in the previous presentation, is addressed by the data class layer. So what you're going to see now is just object-oriented programming and a particular way to implement objects. Why? Because usually in object-oriented programming we define an object as a consistent entity. Basically, it's a consistent set of data that is protected by its method. So basically, the methods guarantee that if when they start executing, the data is in a consistent state. When the execution finishes, the data is in a consistent state as well. And the way we're going to implement our domain layer, our objects in the domain layer, is through the concept of invariants. So how are we going to do it? I'm going to show you here. So we return to this activity class, okay? And for the activity class, so you have these attributes, as I've shown you, right? And also these relations with other classes, okay? And at the end, we defined a set of invariants. So basically, we define a method called verify invariants, and I have a list of all the invariants that we want to verify. So what we're going to do, basically, our strategy is that I change the class. So I do behavior, I change the class, and at the end, I run these to say, let's verify if I have violated any of the variants and invariants. And if this happens, I just throw an exception. So how do I verify an invariant? Basically, for instance, the name should be required, so there should be a name. So what I do is that if the attribute name is equal to null, or it's the empty string, or is a string that contains blank, basically I throw an exception and say, okay, I cannot change this because then the object will be in an inconsistent state. I do the same type of verification that the region attribute is required, the description attribute is required. This is different, so this I say that's an invariant that says that the number of participants in an activity should be 1 to 5. So if it is 0, less than 0, or more than greater than 5, I just throw an exception. Then I say that the deadline date, starting date, and ending date are required. And I have other invariant that says that deadline should be before starting. Okay, so the application deadline should be before the starting, and the starting should be before the end. Okay, and so I throw this. And this is more interesting, is that say all the teams of this activity should be approved. So what I do, I go to all the teams, so there's a relation with teams, and for each one of them I check whether the team is in a state approved. If the team is in a state approved, if is not, I just abort and I just throw an exception. Okay, so what happens here, just to see this relation, is that actually, look, I have a many-to-many relationship with teams, but I don't worry. This GPA will deal with managing these, as I have as I shown you these, okay, in the database in terms of data. Here, I just say that, well, this class has a list of teams, okay. They are mapped when I just bring the class to memory, okay? And I do this, and I do this verification. The last one is that the name is unique. So it's not possible to have two activities in the context of the same institution with the same name. So what I do is basically the same. I go to the institution, I get to all the activities of the institution. So I go to this institution, okay, and then on the other side, since this is one-to-many, I get many-to-one, I get one-to-many, I get a list of activities, and I go through this list of activities and check if there's one with the same name. Of course, I should ignore the activity itself, okay? This one, of course. I allow this one to have the same name, okay? And then I throw an exception. So the last thing I want to show you is that sometimes I cannot survive only with invariants. I need to have something that we call preconditions. And so, for instance, what is a precondition is for this method, which is report an activity to happen, she should not be in the state reported. So what I do, I have this activity cannot be reported precondition, and I check this. If the state of this activity is already reported, and if you are trying to report it, so just throw an exception. You are not allowed to do this. Finally, what I do, for instance, when I create an activity, that's the constructor, I don't worry, I just put the information there, and at the end I verify invariants. And I'm gonna do this every time I do some changes to the class. That's it. Thank you.